Yo, and it's time to welcome our good friend, attorney Glenn Whelan. Glenn, welcome to the show.
Good morning. How are you, Tom?
We're doing fantastic, thank you. We know that you're a personal injury attorney here in Orlando, and of course that means you do a lot of automobile accidents. And Glenn, what I wanted to ask you about today is something that's confusing to me and maybe to the public as well, and that is stacked automobile insurance. So let's just say you got a family that lives in a home. You got a wife and kids and maybe adult kids, and maybe each of them have their own insurance policies. What is a stacked insurance policy?
Well, Tom, stacked insurance really applies with auto insurance and what we like to call uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. And it's really a kind of a simple concept, and that is if you own three vehicles and they're all insured with either the same insurance company or different insurance companies, if you have what's called stacking or stackable insurance coverage, if you bought a policy that was $25,000 and you have three vehicles on that policy, and somebody happens to hit you in this state that's uninsured, and keep in mind, 26% of the drivers in Florida are uninsured, then what happens is you stack those three $25,000 policies together, and now you have $75,000 worth of insurance coverage and not just $25,000. So
Glenn,
you just stack them on top of each other.
Glenn, that sounds like a win. It sounds like it's a good thing for the typical consumer out there. So for the typical automobile insurance owner out there, or is it across the board always say, yeah, I want to stack my policies?
Well, you have to actually say you don't want to stack it in order to not have stacking. The law says if you buy insurance and you buy uninsured motorist coverage, it's supposed to be stackable unless you sign the form that the insurance company gives you that says, I elect non-stacking coverage. And that is something that sometimes agents want to sell that because maybe they get a little higher commission when they sell the non-stacking versus the stacking.
All right. If you're a consumer, are you paying more for your insurance policy when it's stacked?
You pay a little bit more. The premium's a little bit higher. But when you think about the fact that if you take a $25,000 policy or a $100,000 policy and you stack three vehicles and now you have $300,000 worth of coverage, it really saves you money. And here's another tip, and that is people ask me all the time, well, I only own one car. Why do I need stacking insurance? And I tell them, well, if you don't have stacking and you're riding in my car or you're riding in your mom's car or you're riding in your brother's car and you're involved in an accident, you can't stack it. But if you have stacking insurance and you're riding in my car, your mother's car, your brother's car, you can stack your coverage on top of their coverage. So if you had a $25,000 policy and they had a $100,000 policy, now you've got the benefit of $125,000 worth of coverage to help you pay medical bills, lost wages, and things of that nature. Because remember, in Florida, this is a crazy state. We still have what's called no fault, and no fault only pays $10,000 of medical bills and $10,000 of property damage, which is the minimum insurance you're supposed to carry in Florida. And, Tom, it's been that way since I started practicing law in 1982. And medical bills have gone up a lot since 1982.
So the lesson to be learned here is that as far as automobile insurance, you are automatically getting a stacked policy unless you sign a form saying, I don't want it.
That's correct.
And it sounds like it's a good thing for the consumer.
Even sometimes it's a great thing for the consumer. And, the other thing is they'll sometimes try to convince you that you don't need uninsured motorist coverage and you can elect to not have it. And if you don't sign if you don't sign the election form, you automatically get it. And I've actually had some cases where the insurance company said they didn't have uninsured motorist coverage but couldn't produce the form and ended up having to pay a lot of money because they could not produce the form and therefore they had to provide the coverage.
So that gets back to what you initially stated, and that is 26% of the drivers out there on the road don't have insurance. What happens if you're in an accident with one of those drivers and it was their fault? If they don't have insurance, then you got to look to your uninsured motorist coverage on your policy for damages.
That's correct. You have to look to your uninsured motorist company to pay the medical bills and lost wages because the person that hit you doesn't have insurance. Now, remember, that statistic is 26% don't have any insurance. That doesn't include the people that only have PIP, which is called no fault, and property damage only coverage.
Yeah.
And those two coverages will not help you when the other person's at fault.
I get you. Wow, that's scary to think about. Well, I tell people out there that they're concerned about being sued. I tell them, look, your best defense is to be well insured, but really your best defense about people that have no insurance or underinsured is that's another reason for you to have good coverage on your automobiles. Even if you have to pay a little bit more, boy, you might very well need it if you're in any kind of accident here in Florida.
Well, that's correct, Tom. You're absolutely right. And the thing about uninsured motorist coverage is it only applies and only can be used by the consumer who purchases it or people that are riding in that consumer's car. Nobody else can get to it unless you're in that vehicle and it's your coverage to provide coverage to you. And I'll tell you, the other thing I tell people is that statistic at 26% is across the board. I'm going to tell you that between 11 o'clock at night and 3 o'clock in the morning, you can say it's about 50%.
Yeah.
Because those are the people that are not necessarily the most responsible people out there.
Well, do you know the stats? If we know 26% of the people don't have insurance, do you know what percentage of people only have that minimum $10,000 of insurance? I mean, that's got to be a big number too.
Unfortunately, it is a big number, I can tell you, because we see it all the time. But unfortunately, our insurance commissioner has not given us that statistic yet. We're trying to get that information to make sure that we know exactly how many people are driving around without what's called bodily injury insurance, which most states require you to have. And bodily injury insurance means that if you cause an accident, you have coverage to help pay the lost wages and medical bills of the person that you hit and you injured in that